Hey guys, thanks for stopping by the channel. If you're watching this video, you're probably in the market for a second gen Cummins, specifically either a 12 valve or a 24 valve. I kind of have both here, so I'm kind of hoping I can compress all these other videos that I've seen online about, you know, the paint, the exterior, to the engine, to the drivetrain. Hope I can compress it all together and kind of give you guys a lump sum of what you need to know when you go to buy one of these. There's definitely a lot to look for, just besides your average car, you know, vehicle, stuff that you would look for, like when you go like the rust, the steer, and all that bullshit. There's things that only pertain to these engines and drivetrains that you may not know if you're just getting into the market of it. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to go over the exterior, and then I'm going to go into the undercarriage itself, like the frame and stuff, and then we're going to go into the drivetrain itself. So if you just want to see the drivetrain, I just recommend go ahead and skip to the end. But I'm going to go ahead and show some things that like what you might want to look for as far as the exterior and other frames. So Justin, you'll follow me over here. As far as like the paint goes and stuff on these, they're pretty shit, I ain't gonna lie. This one has some oh, there goes that flashlight. They're notorious for having a clear coat come off and stuff like that. You can see on this hood right here. The most notorious spots you'll see that the clear coat comes off of is right here on these hood, right here on these fenders, this hood, and on top of the cab. I've actually repainted one of these before. My old black truck, I redid the fenders, this, and the hood, or the hood and the cab, and it turned out pretty okay. As far as rust and stuff like this, I live down south, guys, so I'm not the expert on rust, but from what I've seen before, I kind of know what I'm looking for right now. Of course, your rockers are always going to rust. They usually rust within the first 10 years. So by now you're picking them up, they're probably going to be rusty. So anywhere around the wheel wells, all that shit is going to be rusted out if it hasn't been taken care of. Back here it's usually pretty rusty too. And then let's see here. As you can see right here, like any type of like horizontal, it's gonna be rusty. Now this is kind of a different thing. They beat and banged on this damn truck. They didn't show it a lot of love, like you should show trucks. Like this truck's got a lot of TLC and a lot of love done to it. So let me see. Let me go ahead and take the camera, and I'm gonna go up under the. Alright guys, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go up under the front end and just kind of show you like what to look for in the rust. So I just got done painting, redoing all this, but you'll see these dishes right here, these rust out a lot, that hold your spring in place. A lot of your rust you'll see up around the axles and stuff, like where the tire kicks everything. Let me get up under here. There's a spot. This right here, let me get the camera to focus in. This right here is notorious for rusting out. It's kind of like a low point of like water stuff, like it get inside the frame and get trapped, and this will always rust out right here up under this. So this is a four-wheel drive model, obviously. That one over there is two-wheel drive, and same thing applies as far as the rust goes. So let me go ahead and show you the rest of the frame, some more common spots where this shit's rust through. Also, let me go back over here to the 12 valve. Right here behind this bump stop, this right here, a lot of times that'll rust out. So guys, make sure you kind of knock on the frame and kind of check around the frame, beat and bang on it. At the end of the day, you're gonna be spending the money, so you might as well check it out. And if you're insulting the buyer, well then fuck him. He's trying to hide something. All right, next thing you want to look for on these frames, right here. So right here we have the gas tank, right here is the fuel tank, and then right here you have the frame. This frame right here, I always want to check up inside here and put your hand up in there, see if I can get a light to focus a little bit better. So right here's the fuel tank, and up inside here, this right here is notorious for rusting out, always. So we don't have any rust. So this was a Southern truck, so it ain't too bad. Also your cab corners right here. So you have your cab mount right here that bounces the frame. These right here are notorious for rusting out as well. Actually, I had one and it rusted slam out in the front. Move right here. These right here, always. See, this one's good. I had a truck, this completely rotted out, and it caused the cab to actually flex and hit the tires. And it was not a good thing at all, I tell you that much. Making our way to the back. Really nothing I really look for. A lot of times you'll see rust around like the axle and these leaf springs. They'll start to catch a lot of rust. Be careful of these right here that hold your leaf springs in place. I guess you like your leaf spring shackles. They're notorious. I had one rust out on me on one of the trucks, and I had to replace it. It really just rusted and got weak, and then it broke under tension. So yeah, that's pretty much that. I'm gonna hand you back the camera. Now let's go on to like the cool. Let's go into the interior now. Most of your 12 valves, unless it was a 98.5, do not have the opening rear doors. So you see right here is just one door line, so let's have another crease right here, but then it's an early second gen like this. And see, this one does have the creases. Everybody knows, I'm only gonna say it once, the fucking interior sucks on these early 90s trucks. Almost all 90s cars interior sucks. Of course, everybody knows the dash is always broken. This one's gone. Very rarely will you find one that's had the dash replaced or is still in good tack. This one, I replaced the whole interior in the 12 valve, so it looks pretty mint. So I'm gonna show you like this one versus that one now. If you have the rear opening doors, I would put 75% of the time there's latches and cables inside here that open your door, and they just quit working. They don't open the mechanism right. That side does work, this side doesn't. You always want to check for that, because that could be a bargaining tool. Like something doesn't work, just, you know, run the price down on them. Some have power seats. They come with power seats, they come with power windows. You can also buy them, like the earlier second gens don't have all these options. I know this 12 valve doesn't. Let's see here. AC's all right if it's running right. Most of the time when you buy these, they'll say the AC works, but it really doesn't. They just put Freon in it for the sale. So you have to go through and check all that. Once you get the AC running right, it runs all right, but these blower motors in these trucks don't move a lot of air, and they're kind of loud. So if you're looking for some AC, you better buy a new truck, because these 20-year-old trucks is gonna be very mediocre. Trying to think. As far as like the rest of the panels inside the cab, they're not too bad. They can take a little bit more abuse than that dash can. I don't know what the hell they made the dash out of, but it's probably like peanut brittle. Trying to think of what else. That's pretty much as far as like the interior goes. It's pretty straightforward. Sometimes this, let me see the camera. Yeah, hey guys. Sometimes this back glass right here will leak. Like the seals around it will go bad and it'll leak. And I've actually seen a truck before somebody's trying to sell, and they had tape across that middle piece. A lot of times you'll have to look out for that, because it'll start seeping in the back. When did we stop recording? We're at 152.
For like 2 seconds.
Oh, okay. All right, here you go. All right, let's see here. Let's go over to the 12 valves interior. So this interior is actually stripped out of a 1500 and put it in there. So you see this broke piece right here. I broke that putting it in because it's still pretty brittle. But this is like a new dash cap, and they run you $200-300. I painted the headliner black. It just looks a little bit better. As far as like that back glass is good and sliding. Sometimes, zoom in right here, Justin. These little panels right here, these clips and shit will fall through, like this one did right here, and you'll have to pull it back through. And sometimes the electronic piece inside here will go bad. But that's just kind of expected. Let's go ahead and close this. Let me think of anything else. Windows are usually pretty good. I've owned 4 of these, so usually this piece right here, this trim piece, usually starts coming up at some point. That's just, you know, small things to look out for. Let's see here. So I guess that's pretty much for the exterior. I guess we'll go into like the brakes real quick, then we'll go into the drivetrain itself. The brakes, usually you'll have problems with these brakes, especially like the front brakes. Like if the truck's pulling to one side when you brake, it's probably a caliper issue, if not a steering issue. We know the steering is terrible in these, so I'm not gonna say that. I had a caliper issue. I had a caliper issue on 2 trucks, so you just have to replace the caliper, brace the calipers, and you'll be fine. Your early second gens had disc brakes in the rear, and the newer second gens, I'm sorry, scratch that. Fuck me. We're timing out. We're restarting. Some of the earlier second gens had drum brakes in the rear. They're not as good for stopping. And then the later model second gens did have disc brakes. Definitely the things you want. Some people do the conversion or swap out the brake systems on that. If you feel like doing that, then go ahead, Superman. That's all you. Let's go on to the next thing. If you're able to, I would probably try to jack up the front end and see if these hubs are good. All you do is just jack up the front end, and then you'll grab the tire here and here, and you'll move it back and forth. If you can do that, then there's probably a hub issue. If not, some other issues on there as well. Coming up to the front end. Look, guys, we know second gens are notorious for the front end part problems. Your 2-wheel drives ain't as bad, but they're still pretty bad. But if you get a 4-wheel drive, pretty much any long bar you see running is going to have to be replaced, and also the ball joints, anything like that at some point. And then pretty much if you care about your steering, you're going to have to get like a redhead gear steering box. That's pretty much like the only one on the market. It's pretty much the only one people talk about if you don't want to go back with OEM. Hand you back the camera. 2-wheel drives ain't as bad, but they also don't have as many moving parts in the front end like the 4-wheel drive does. Because the 4-wheel drive is a full floating front end. God, that's a lot of shit to say. There's definitely a lot to do in that front end. So I guess we'll go ahead and on to the meat and potatoes that everybody's here for. We'll go ahead and talk about the drivetrain. So this is a 12 valve. It has 154,000 miles on it. There's not that many problems with the 12 valve. Really, it's just a pretty much solid engine. You know, you take care of it and do the oil changes and stuff. Common problems to look for leaks. Just if you look down inside here, your front crankcase cover, all down in here where the belt runs and stuff like that. Most of the time, your higher mileage trucks will start to sweat around that seal. So that's one thing. And also up here at the top of these covers, you'll see sweat there. If you want to check for blow by, you need to check for blow by. If you buy a diesel, what you'll do is you'll crank it up, you'll unscrew this lid right here. I would say get it up to operating temperature and start driving it. What you'll do is you'll sit it right here, make sure the cap's loose, and if you see that cap floating, or like a super dark white haze coming out, you have blow by. What is blow by? Blow by is the piston rings of the cylinder itself, and the piston rings kind of help keep everything where it should be. Those rings start to wear out after 200-300,000 miles, so you'll start to get blow by. It definitely becomes an issue, and if it's really bad, like if it's actually dumping out white smoke, if it gets too bad, it can dump out the breather tube on the bottom of the truck, or right here if you pull this back, or pull this off as well. If it's like just pouring out white smoke, I wouldn't mess with it unless you have money to rebuild the engine. Most people buying these second-gen trunks are usually younger guys like us. They just buy them because it's what the fuck they can afford. Because the third-gen, early third-gens will run you mid-15, and late third-gens will run you like upper 15s, upper teens, and then in the 20s, and then higher after that for the fourth-gens. So this is where we can really afford right now. Another thing is the vacuum pump that's down here on the side of the block. Let's see if we can get it down here. A lot of people have issues with those. It's down right there. Another issue is the there's a tappet cover down here. It's almost like a square. Justin, we can pop the hood on that one, so we'll move over there next. So let's talk about transmission. Everybody knows the Dodge transmissions are notorious for being pieces of shit, and that's nothing new. So people are like, yeah, I know Cummins, but they really don't. They just know it's a bad transmission, that's it. So your 47 REs are what came in the second gens. That's your automatic. It's a 4-speed, but it's really 3 gears with an overdrive. You have a lot of issues with those. They're not really meant to handle anything over stock horsepower, and you can probably bet around if you're buying a truck with 200,000 miles on it and it still has a stock automatic, you're probably going to have issues at some point if it hasn't been rebuilt, or if some asshole hasn't got in there and put a hot box on it on a 24 valve. There's definitely some things you could do to fix that. Most of the time it's just a full rebuild, man. I'm sorry, I hate to tell it to you. And then for the other second gens, for the manuals, we can talk about that real quick. For the manuals, you have the 5-speed. They had a 3rd gear synco problem, and the 5th gear nut that backs off of the 5th gear and you lose 5th gear. You can fix that 5th gear if the issue happens. You can fix that if it's not too bad. If it's severe, then you might have to be looking into some sort of rebuild for that 5th gear or the whole transmission itself. Like I said, they come with the 47 RE and the 5-speed. 5-speed is pretty good. It's what's in this truck. I haven't really had any problems out of it, but also I'm not drag racing the motherfucker either. Let's move over here to the 24 valve, because this is a pretty solid truck. The front end is a Dana 60. You never really have any problems out of them. Rear end for a 2500 is a Dana 70, and if you have a 3500, it's a Dana 80. They're good rear ends, unless you do some crazy shit and you pumping out crazy horsepower numbers, and then you would run into problems as you would expect to be. 24 valves. Everybody knows these things have problems in them. They're fucking the Achilles heel of the 24 valve engine is the VP44 right here on the top. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I know the VP44 sucks, stuff like that. The reason why, the Carter pump that pumps fuel up to the lift pump, right, or not, what the Carter is the lift pump, but it pumps up to right here to the injection pump. The injection pump has electronics inside of it, and they use the fuel to keep cool. What happens when you start starving this thing, it has to start pulling more fluid through and then push it into the block itself. It starts overworking. It's not meant to do that. So that's why you have a VP44 failure. We had a 3500 that had that go out. The Carter went out, so the ejection pump, it goes out soon after. You really don't know until it's too late, and then you're looking at over $1,000 for a stock one. If you want to build one, well, you're looking at close to $1,500 to $2,000, depending on how much horsepower you want to put out. So most of the time when people are doing this one has a fast 150 on it. So a fast 150 pumps more fuel, and there's also a return line that comes off this VP44 back into the tank. And I'll speak about that in a minute. Let me see the camera. Let me see if I can get you a picture of it. The banjo, where'd the light go? I quit the camera. Do you see that brass bushing back there with the lights on? I'm trying to get it. It's like a little T connection. I'm trying to get the lights like right on it. There it is. Here, hold that. So that's your banjo bolt. That's where the return line comes back off, and then it also meets the back of the block. and it comes back and feeds it back into the fuel tank. If you're having a hard start issue, a lot of times people will be like, oh, it's just a starter, oh, it's this, is that. What's probably happening is you're getting air in the system somewhere. It's not very airtight, so that air will push the fuel back to the line, and you'll have hard start issues. So you'll have to go in there and replace the banjo bolt, bush, or copper washer and stuff like that. It's not very hard. There's also a washer up here at the front of the injection pump. I ran into that issue too, and I had to fix it, and it started my hard start issue. Other things about the VP44, same thing as the 12 valve, that front crankcase cover seeps oil. This one actually does seep oil, and if it seeps a lot of oil, you'll see where the fan slings it up into the hood of the truck. So look for that, because people will be like, oh, it doesn't leak oil, but if you look at the top of this hood, you see oil splattered everywhere, and it's been leaking oil a while. And don't get me wrong, guys, these are Cummins. They're notorious for leaking or seeping some sort of oil. If it's like drop every now and then, it's not that bad. Trust me, you can still drive the truck. I've had 4. Most of them, except for this one, has some sort of oil leak with it. Now, if it's just sitting there dripping, you got fucking issues, bro. I would probably try to fix that. Another issue with this one is the tappet cover on the side of the block. All it is a big square behind the injection pump. You might want to look into that. That was a notorious place for leaking. Okay, let's talk about the KDP and the 24 valve. Damn, these things have a lot of problems, bro. 12 valve was like, yeah, that's good, but the 24 valve, bro, it's got so many fucking problems. Still a good motor though. Okay, so let's talk about the KDP. The KDP is this little bitty dowel pin that they kind of use to put the block together once it was in the factory. It's behind the crankcase cover. You just pull it off. There's a little tab. You can buy the kit. It's like 10 bucks, and you screw it in, and it tabs that KDP. It's called the killer dowel pin. Another thing, 53 blocks. Your 24 valves have these 53 blocks. They came from Mexico. All they do is they have a thinner walling for the block itself. To tell if you have a 53 block, what you'll do is you'll get up under here, and you'll look right up under the turbo. You have to go from the bottom. Let me see if I can find it right here. Let me get the flashlight. Alright guys, if you're looking for the 53 block, literally just put your head up on the front tire. Look up, look up, and it'll be like right here. It's got fucking covered right now and shit because this damn case leaks, but yeah, it's right here. That's where you'll see it. You'll want the, here you go. So that's where you'll see the block number at. Right up under there, or also you can see it up on this side too. You want to avoid the 53 blocks. People's had the 53 blocks and drove it 300,000-400,000 miles, no issue. Some people drove it 150,000 miles and block cracked. It's just kind of luck of the draw on that. And we got grass on my damn neck. So yeah, the 24 valve definitely has a lot more problems than the 12 valve, but it can also make more power with just electronic tunes. Now the 12 valve can also make more power, but you have to put like mechanical parts in there. So that's pretty much for the 24 valve. Let's talk about the transmissions on these. 47RE. I already explained that. Dog shit ass transmission and after stock horsepower if it hasn't been rebuilt in over 100,000 miles. A lot of times when you go to check, a lot of times with these 24 valves, you'll have issues. Justin, you zoom in right here on the alternator. A lot of times you'll have a white noise issue right here with this wire. This wire right here is an unshielded wire, and it kind of attributes to something called white noise. You can come back on me. White noise is an issue between the 4th gear or 3rd gear in the overdrive, around 40 to 45 miles an hour. You'll start to get these shifts, like this stutter shift problem. That's probably attributed to this white noise wire right here. What people do is usually just rerun the whole wire. What I did with mine, I just wrapped it up in aluminum foil, then tape again to shield that electronic interference you can also buy the BD noise isolator, and all it does is plug in right here to the box and you ground it out. So it's not too bad. So definitely when you test drive these 47REs, try to see if you can get it to get around the 40 to 45 and like get on the gas, let it off, get on the gas, let it off, see if you can get that stutter to happen. If that stutter happens, there's another like another buy point. You like, hey, it's doing the stutter thing, see if you can work on the price of that, because then that's something you're gonna have to fix. Of course, if the transmission doesn't shift all right, you know, if it shifts weird going through these gears in automatic, well then you know something's up. Or if it's like trying to hunt a gear, or if it's like really revving too high and it's not like shifting right, they might have went in there at some point and messed with the shift points on the transmission, which I don't know. I'd probably stay away from that. Ask them. Let's see here. I would ask them if they've ever serviced the transmission too. If they haven't serviced it, then I wouldn't service it, because a lot of times you service the automatic transmissions. After you service it, it just fucks it up, and I'm not even gonna get into that. It just does. You can look it up yourself. Let's talk about the 5 speeds and 6 speeds in these, and then it's almost time to wrap up the video. Thank you, Justin, for holding that camera. I appreciate it, bro. 5 speeds came in some of the later model 2nd gens, and then the 6 speed came in the late model 2nd gens, which is your MV5600. Let's see here. I mentioned the MV4500 had a 3rd gear synchro issue and then also the 5th gear nut problem. Still great transmissions if you take care of those problems. I haven't had any problem out of mine. I've been driving several thousand miles. They're just on dog the bitch out and you'll be alright. 6-speeds are pretty much solid. The only thing the 6-speeds had, and we actually ran into this, was they have a synchro issue. So all the synchro does is kind of like lines everything up in the transmission, make sure everything's perfect when it's time to shift again. We had 4th gear go out on one, so we had to replace it with another one. And so that's pretty much the only issue. Pretty much everybody wants the MV5600s. They're pretty solid transmission. I want an MV5600 myself, but I ended up with an MV4500. Perfect. That's fine. All right, guys. So the last few minute notes here that I kind of want to throw in that I've probably talked over at some point, but I didn't really cover. On the 47REs, there's transmission lines that go up to the transmission cooler in the front. I would look at those. A lot of times they'll rub against each other and develop pinholes. There's little black clips supposed to hold them in place, and then they'll rub holes in each other, and they're pretty high pressure lines. So those just dump out fuel, not fuel, but transmission fluid. Let me see the camera. I'm gonna show them what I'm talking about. All right, guys. So you see these 2 lines right here, these 2 gray lines. These are the lines I'm talking about. They run to the transmission from the cooler, and you see this little black piece of line right here. It's actually a fix we had to do on one of these. It's a temp fix until we wait for the line to get in. And so these will rub up against each other or rub up against the bell housing or whatever have you. So see, there's a black clip right there. Close up on that, kind of, maybe it's not really working for us in the light. Those go bad and they cause a hole to rub into it. So that's one problem you have there. Another issue, let's see here. Another thing, what you want to do is if you're buying a 4-wheel drive, you want somebody inside the cab. They're going to turn on the accessory and they're going to turn this back and forth, and you're going to look for any jumping parts up here that's not like really contributing to turning the tires. If there's a jumping part, it means it's going to have to replace. Usually it's like the bad ball jumps and shit like that. All right, guys, so that's pretty much the video. I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm sure I missed something, so if anybody sees this and I missed something, please leave it down below, because I definitely wouldn't want one of my friends going out and spending $8,000 on a piece of shit truck that's not even worth the fuck. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hate, love, leave it down below. Let me know how I did. I think I pretty much covered almost everything I could think of and some of the problems I ran into. So yeah, thank you guys.